Guys, we have a little bit of a problem, and I realize there's something we have never talked about on our channel before. It is how you make your finances work while traveling. Now, something happened this morning, and I wanted to share a little bit more about that. As you know, I have been traveling in my van for about 2 years now, and along the way, I have a base camp in Texas. At my base camp, that is where I do all of my financial planning for all of my adventures that are coming up. Well, something happened. See this right here? This is Riley's car. Riley and I were off onto a grand adventure, and we actually came into the great state of California because we have something really cool going on. And we're slowly making our way across over to the Anaheim area. I called my bank in advance to let them know what was going on. And I always do this. In fact, I always tell you guys, one of the things that you need to do whenever you're planning for an adventure is to first contact your bank. Let them know what states you're traveling to so they're aware that you are on the road. Therefore, you don't get flagged and have that awkward moment where you get the fraud call. Or worse yet, your card is cut off. But this morning, my worst case scenario happened. Even though I go through these steps every single time I leave my base camp, for the last 5 years, I managed to put my card in a gas pump. It was a Flying J, and I got the notification saying, you need to go inside to pay the cashier. What? Okay, sometimes gas pumps can be kind of funny, so okay, I get it. I went inside, I paid for my gas, no problem, and then I got a text message that I think was from my bank. Now, when I say I think it's from my bank, I don't actually know if it's from my bank. That's the problem. So typically, if you have a fraudulent interaction on your card, they will let you know by either calling you or texting you. However, whenever I tried to call back the number, I got this really weird vibe from it. It is a Sunday, so there's nothing I can do about this. However, it has really left me in a bad state of mind. So the first thing that I did was go with Riley to a Starbucks where we were planning on officing for the day, and I checked to see if my card was still working. It was. So that led me to also think, okay, so maybe this wasn't a legitimate call. I looked up the number. I found that there are mixed reviews on some people saying yes and some people saying no. What do you do in that case? What do you do? I don't know. I won't know until tomorrow. In fact, I won't know until I can actually physically call my bank. And that is why I wanted to make this video. So in the meantime, Riley and I are sitting here working a little bit and trying to get our podcast going. But yeah, puts me in kind of a crazy place. I don't know what to do, and so what do you do in situations like this? Well, today we're gonna talk about it. Okay, it's day 2, which is Monday, and I was able to call the bank, and everything's fine. Everything's fine. Whew. Okay, my day doesn't feel near as stressful as it did just like yesterday. Let me tell you a little bit more about what happened. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to be cleaning up my van a little bit. I just folded up my blankets. I'm getting everything ready for the road. And yeah. Now, I already told you kind of what happened. I went to the gas pump. I tried to use my card. It didn't work. I went inside. I typed in my little PIN number and it worked just fine. Sometimes whenever you have a debit style card especially, this is what they require whenever you're changing from state to state. You have to physically put your PIN number in. But just to ensure that your bank doesn't have any kind of red flags or anything crazy, sometimes your bank also might ask you to let them know what states you're traveling in so they can alert their fraud department if you're outside of that range. Well, initially, whenever I set up my travel notice, I had told them I was going to be in New Mexico, Arizona, and Nevada. However, I added California in an additional call. Guess what, guys? I'm in California. So either something happened and the computer system hadn't fully updated that I'm in California, or it just noticed that I had kind of a weird expense because the gas pump I stopped at wasn't just one of those that just holds a little bit of money just to make sure it's there. This one held $126. So my bank thought that was kind of an odd number, so it popped up as "oh no." Well, yesterday whenever I went to Starbucks, I was sitting there and I was doing some work, but I also went ahead and physically logged in to my bank site just to make sure there wasn't anything else weird. I always encourage anyone who is traveling to make sure that they have access to remote banking, and this is the reason why. Even though you can't maybe physically go into a branch, you can at least see what's popping up without having to have like a paper statement. Just so much more helpful. And even better if your bank offers an app that you can put on your phone so that you can easily reference this. Do it. Just do it. Anyway, when I sat down at Starbucks, I noticed nothing was weird going on. I pulled up the app to see if anything was presenting on there that might not have made it over to the regular website. Nothing. So I had no idea at that moment where this $126 was even coming from. This morning, first thing in the morning, as soon as I woke up, because I'm in a different time zone, I called the bank. Hey bank, help me. Oh no, I am all the way over in California and my card is saying I have a fraud watch. Number one, is this real? Number two, what do I do? They were really cool. They helped me out very promptly and said, one, no need to worry. That was just a gas pump authorization, and they were trying to alert me that something kind of awkward was going on, and it was indeed their text message. So I was like, okay, that makes me feel a little better. Furthermore, she checked my travel notice, everything was good, and I am on and about my day now, almost, as soon as I get my van straightened up. But what was kind of triggering to me personally was the text message from the fraud department. Nowadays, especially for us nomads, we probably notice our phones a lot more, and a lot more random text messages are starting to pop up from like telemarketers or phishers or people who are just trying to like be deceiving and get our information. And there is nothing scarier than knowing that your personal information is in the hands of someone else, and then that you have to deal with it in the chaos of the road. So, what do you do in situations like this to know if in fact you are getting a legitimate call from your bank, or rather a text from your bank? Well, the best thing that I can suggest is if your bank physically texts you, call their number directly. Don't call the number in the text message. Call your physical bank directly. Woo. My reason for this is if you call the physical branch that you actually bank at and speak to someone you physically already have spoken to, you can have the assurance inside that nothing is going awry. I think that was my biggest panic moment yesterday, was that I did not know if that text message was actually from my bank or not, because there's so many people these days who try to defraud others, and it made me so nervous to just call that number and say, yes, this was my transaction. Even more so, it made me nervous because once I typed that number into Google to make sure it was an authorized number, there were a variety of different reviews, some positive and some very negative. Because unfortunately, a lot of the banking systems now have turned to using different kinds of services that provide their fraud awareness. In other words, they all outsource that, and it goes to one big call center. And that can be kind of scary because those are the numbers that typically become a little iffy when it comes to fraud. Now, I thought maybe this is an isolated thing that I have had to endure. However, I was asking Riley, who was with me yesterday and who is with me now, about her experiences with banking and how she navigates making sure she's okay. I have a little technique that works for me, but she has something also that's a little bit different. So I wanted to ask her, and I just woke her up. So let's go ask. Okay, so Riley is just barely out of bed. I totally was so excited that I got this resolved that I Yeah. So Riley, how do you handle travel finances? Do you ever find yourself in a weird spot? How do you negate that?
Well, it just so happens that I have two bank accounts. And,
Smart.
I have several credit cards as well. So I don't even use my debit card out of fear of fraudulent charges like that. So, I keep like always on my person one debit card and one credit card, because that's all you really need, and then I hide the other one somewhere in my vehicle. And then if something happens, which actually ironically it did happen to one of my credit cards, where there was just something weird and it got canceled. I don't know how it happened, but like luckily nothing bad happened. I was just like, why did it get canceled? So I had another credit card to use,
Good job.
as a backup. So I'm very lucky that way.
That's very, very smart. And then also, do you have a safety buddy or a security buddy who, if worse comes to worse, could send you money?
Yeah, I have, my parents will just like Zelle me money or something.
Okay, cool. So see, that's why I wanted to show you guys what it's kind of different. So for me personally, I don't travel with all of the extra cards. I don't have all those extra cards. And it's nothing that is right or wrong about what Riley does or what I'm doing. The fact is, each and every one of us are a little bit different. And because of that, our methods for coping with things like this are very different. In other words, if you have one card, 20 cards, or 0 cards, we always have to have a financial strategy that works for us while traveling. So like I always call my bank and say, hey, I'm traveling, putting a travel notice on my account. I also make sure that I have a small emergency fund just in case. And I think that that's really important. We should always have a little bit of a backup plan, or have someone who can send you some money like Riley does, or like I do. If worse comes to worse, you can have a friend. It doesn't have to always be a family member who you entrust with a certain amount of money to send to you in case of worst case scenario. And that's something that you should also consider. A lot of times people just consider to have a buddy at home as a safety buddy who they can keep in touch with. But have you ever considered that that safety buddy can also be your like emergency just in case in other scenarios? I think that that's one of the things that we should all challenge ourselves to do. Find a person that we trust enough that we could potentially have as our security buddy that is not traveling with us. They should have a copy of your key, and they should also have a little bit of extra backup cash just in case you need it. So one last thing that we need to talk about, and that is what happens if your card is actually compromised. I was fortunate in that my bank was very easy to communicate. We got it taken care of like that. I only had to wait it out one day because of the weekend. But what if your card is actually compromised and they need to cancel it? Okay, so Riley, how would you feel if you only had one card and then you found out something bad happened and it was canceled?
I'd probably panic a little.
Same.
Probably panic a little.
That was me yesterday. In fact, Riley got to see a side of me that you guys don't often get to see, a side that really is not a comfortable bunny side. I was panic because I was thinking, okay, I am many states away from having access to my bank directly. I am also in a place that I would have to sit until a new card came, and that could take days and days. And typically, while I travel with a lot of leniency in my planning, this is not that trip. I actually have somewhere that I have to be tomorrow, and it is not here. So what do? What did I do? I panicked hard. I was freaking out so badly. We actually were at that Starbucks and I was looking up all the worst case scenarios of how I could deal with this. And if they would allow me to maybe use a one-time transaction to pull out enough money to make it function until I could get the card. And then furthermore, where would I ship the card? It's not like an Amazon package or a Walmart package. And I don't know that necessarily they would feel comfortable general delivering it to a post office. So those are all things that you need to think about whenever it comes to van life. You know, a lot of times we think about the really fun stuff, but the hard stuff is actually the stuff that goes unseen until it is absolutely a crisis. So while everything is now handled and taken care of and I have a smile back on my face, it is a very different scenario than it was yesterday. That is all I can say. Yesterday, me and Dimples, we had a little moment for sure. And then poor Riley had to see me get very frustrated and very stressed out. And that impacted our entire morning until I was able to just like, get it together. There's nothing else we can do about this. Because remember, not all days are bad days, but when they're bad, they're bad. This morning is a very different scenario now. Now that I feel calm again, I'm about to get my van together. We are about to go to the gym and take a shower, and then we're going to hit the road off to our next adventure. That adventure was made possible by the fact that this was an easy problem to navigate. Thank goodness. But the fact is, at some point, everyone is going to have some kind of weird moment like I did yesterday. And the key is to keeping it cool, keeping it calm, and figuring it out. I knew for a fact that number one, I needed to call my bank directly. And I think that that was the biggest thing I could have done at that moment, was to tell myself there's nothing I can do about this until I can physically call the bank. Worst case scenario, I can use the emergency cash that I have and pay for whatever I need to today. And after I got to that mindset, after I got past the initial panic, everything went smooth sailing. We finished up at Starbucks, we went on an adventure which you guys will see really soon, and all in all, I had a really great time. Something that I didn't think a few years ago I would have ever been able to do as a result of that kind of stress. So I wanted to share this experience with you to get you guys thinking a little bit. Number one, do you have a strategy if this were to happen? Number two, how are you taking care of your finances? And number three, do you have a safety buddy as backup? Think about all of these things. Get back to me if you have any questions about what is working for me, and I will see you guys next time. If you have enjoyed coming along with me and hearing about this, and then also can identify with this, make sure that you leave a thumbs up, hit the subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!